Yay!
Yay! Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Welcome, everyone, to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 278. We thought we'd start it off awkward just for fun. Off to a great start. Very excited about tonight's show. I'm always excited about shows, but I get extra excited when we get to have our coach, David Roche, on the show to drop wisdom bombs on everybody.
That's like sprinkling.
Yeah, fairy dust. It's just like happiness sprinkles. The man is full of wisdom, both from a coaching perspective and an athlete perspective. But this is a conversation that both Kim and I wanted to have with him right after our races, reflecting back a bit on the last couple of weeks for Headlands 100 for me and Wham 110K for Kim. But we've had our conversations with him before our races. But how do we figure out what to do next after races that maybe didn't go according to plan, or we didn't finish, or the mileage that we got to wasn't exactly what our goal was, that sort of thing. So what can we as clients of a coach, or just athletes in general who maybe doesn't have a coach, how can we bounce back from that, get back to the grind, figure out our next target? Do we need another target? And basically turn a failure into success. And I realize that's the sort of title for this show. But we're going to try to take away failure. I realized even as I typed it today, I was like, the word failure isn't what we encountered. So how can we sort of shape what we encountered into something that, like a learning lesson? How can we move on from it and work from it and learn from it? So our guest tonight, David Roche, will be talking to us all about that from a coaching perspective and an athlete perspective. It's going to be a great show. I think one of these that many of us will want to come back to and listen to time and time again. So welcome everyone to Ginger Runner Live. Sit back, relax. The show begins now.
Ginger Runner.
Yay! What is up, everybody? Welcome to Ginger Runner Live, episode number 278. Thank you for taking some time out of your busy Mondays to spend a little bit of it with us. I'm excited about tonight's show because this is a conversation that I've been wanting to have for the last couple of weeks since our races with our coach. So our coach, David Roche, is on the show tonight. He's been a guest on our show many times before, and he's got a wealth of knowledge. He's just a fantastic human being, really great at figuring out how to look at the positive side of things and learn from things and treat every day as a gift and a blessing and use it as strength. So after our two races, if you can go back the last couple of weeks and watch our shows, we did a recap of my Headlands 100 race, and we did a little bit of a recap of your Wham 110K. We thought it would be a great opportunity to bring our coach on, talk to him about our failures and how we can pull them into the success realm and look at them a little bit differently. So we'll introduce our guest, David Roche, here in just a second. But of course, I'm not the only one sitting in front of a microphone.
What's
Hi.
up?
What
Hi.
up?
That's just how we say good morning every morning.
Yeah. It's literally wake up. What up?
What's up, you guys? Kim Tachima Newberry here. If you are new to the show, welcome. We are live. We have our wonderful guest, David, who will be joining us in just a second. So if you guys do have questions for our guest, please pop them into the chat room. That is where I will be for most of the hour.
I imagine you'll be there for most of the hour.
I might leave.
You might take off.
Yeah.
Might do a little something.
We'll see how this goes. I might DNF this show.
We'll figure out how to turn that into a positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
That's the kind of lesson that we hope people take from this show, and that it is one of those episodes that everyone gets a chance to go back to, because at some point, everyone will run into what we ran into the last couple of weeks, which is either a DNF, maybe your body's not cooperating, maybe it's an injury. There's going to be some hurdle, some wall that you encounter, and figuring out how to get over it, through it, learn from it, and take those lessons and hopefully make yourself stronger is a big part of what I hope we can sort of glean from today's show. Before we introduce our wonderful guest, David Roche, we have some individuals that we like to thank at the top of every show, and those are our Patreon subscribers. It is because of them that we're able to do Ginger Runner Live weekly, live every Monday, as well as our reviews, films, travel and races, and do all that stuff. It is because of our Patreon crew. So big shout out to those individuals, 3 individuals in particular at that top tier. Chris Lee. Chris Lee in Hong Kong has a wonderful organization called Trailblazer that showcases the trails in the Hong Kong region. If you find yourself visiting or wanting to go to the Hong Kong region for a race or any of that kind of thing, reach out to Trailblazer. They're fantastic. They've got a brick and mortar. You can get gear, all that good stuff, and you'll meet Chris. He's just such a great human. We get a chance to talk every once in a while. Rick Bjarnason. Rick Bjarnason and his team at cheekymonkeymedia.ca. They're a web design company. They'll work with clients around the globe. They redid the gingerrunner.com website. They're fantastic. Rick himself is an ultra runner. He ran Sinister 7 this year, which is one of Canada's hardest ultras, 100 miles. Just crushed it. And he's just a great dude. So we really appreciate all that Rick has done for us here at the channel. And finally, Brian Sands, longtime friend, longtime viewer. He's probably in the chat room tonight. Correct me if I'm wrong. You probably already see him in there. But Brian has an incredibly inspiring story, losing over 100 pounds, training and racing his first marathon, his first 50K. He's training right now for another, I believe, 100-kilometer race. Crazy. This man is just a complete inspiration and wonderful support for everyone, viewers and audience members and us in the show. So big shout out to those three individuals.
And I'm actually going to get to pace Brian pretty soon in
Pretty
a few
awesome.
weeks, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, we Kim and I are planning on going down to the Javelina 100 in Arizona, and which we talked a little bit about on last week's show when we had Jameel Curry on. But we get to support our GR crew, the Ginger Runner crew. There's going to be a lot of members of this viewing audience that are going to be out there racing. And a lot more that are just going to be there spectating, crewing, and supporting, which is amazing. So we're going to go down and join that party and maybe get some miles in of our own pacing or just having some fun. Should be good. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our fantastic guest back on the show now for probably the 20th time, but we always learn something new, and it's just so great to have him on. Without further ado, our wonderful guest tonight, David Roche.
Yay!
Hey guys! Thanks so much for having me on. I feel like I've been on enough times now that people can probably play drinking games with with faces I have. So if you hear self-belief or self-acceptance, take a shot and have a paramedic nearby. That's all I'm asking.
I love it.
That's great advice. We can probably just end the show there.
I kind of want to always have guests that already have come up with the drinking game for themselves. Like, okay, listen, I'm happy to be on your show, but we got to play a drinking game because I know what I'm going to say. We'll do it tonight, David. I appreciate the heads up.
Awesome. But yeah, I'm just super excited to be on, especially because of the timing, because both Ethan and Kim took big swings. Like, you guys went for it so hard when the option would be there to do something that'd be so much easier and so much more obvious and so much more available to craft an Instagram post about how you conquered something. And instead of that, and we talked about this beforehand, you decided, okay, I'm going to choose this 100-mile for Ethan that has some ridiculous amount, over 20,000 feet of vert, and is just brutal in every way because of the way the downhills pound the legs. And for Kim, it's like, oh, I'm going to go do this race that is known, like on the website, it has so many disclaimers that like, I feel like Barry must be a lawyer in his past at least. So yeah, I mean, that to me is what it's all about. And I was just so proud of you both for the courage to get there, freaking crushing it, and then, confronting the aftermath just as passionately as you did the buildups. And that's what it's about. Like, that's the cool story here. So yeah, I'm super excited.
So let's actually kind of start there, just talking about big swings. So going into this year, I didn't think I'd run another 100. I looked at headlands as, well, maybe this is something that's in my wheelhouse. It has, at that time, because they changed the course and it made it harder. But at that time, I was like, okay, it has lots of vert. It has the loops. It kind of messes with my mind. That's a good thing. I want that. But it's not so far outside of the realm of, man, am I going to get myself into some backcountry chaos that I'm just not ready for mentally at this stage? Is it important for athletes to look at what they're signing up for or goals down the line as big swings, or is it up to the athlete to sort of choose what's right for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone finds meaning through different outlets, with not just athletics, but athletics being a metaphor for life. Like, some people want to work that 9-to-5 accounting job forever, and to them that is a very meaningful living, and they want to do. Other people want to go do like 18 startups, fail 17 times, and there are no value judgments in that. So when it comes to athletics, like I think that the coolest thing about it is that it's this truly, if you dig down deep, no pressure opportunity to go for it. It's life distilled down into a bite-sized morsel where you don't really have consequences other than the narratives you're putting on it yourselves.
Right.
And we can control those narratives. That's like one of my roles as a coach, is to help with those narratives. So what I like, I mean, but at the beginning of 2019, my goal for like every single athlete on the team was, I want you to fail once this year. Not like fail once in like a normal way, like bad workout, maybe an injury. I want you to fail publicly in a humiliating fashion, to preferably like something that you just went for it and it wasn't your day and everyone sees it. And you're just like, that's the purpose. Because once you do that, once you get through that sort of thing, there's nothing in life that can get you. Like, that's the point. You give me a winner, someone that wins a race, and they're not learning crap. Like, they're not going to be taking any good lessons away from that. Not just like as an athlete, but as a person. You give me someone that's overcome things, and that's the coolest thing with coaching, is seeing people that overcome so many things. So both Ethan and Kim see, like, I write these weekly race recaps in our little team group. And I mean, I often allude to people overcoming things. But I don't really say details because that's not my story to share usually, unless someone's like talked about it publicly. But man, those stories are mind blowing, what people overcome. And that's like, both of these races are part of those stories for you. You know, Ethan has talked very openly about what he got through to get through to that start line with anxiety. Kim has dealt with her own things, and like, that narrative that's forming, that we're forming there, that isn't like, oh, I got to this race and IDNF, that is a failure. It's, oh, I got to this race and IDNF, and that is the ultimate success. And that's like this coolest chapter 2 of this story that everyone wants to see, and it's so awesome. So that's a lot of rambling to say. I say go for it. Swing big.
But like what I hadn't heard you say this before, but regarding wanting all your clients, the swap team to fail this year, like that was your goal, was to see everyone fail like spectacularly in a public place. And I hadn't really heard you say that, and just now hearing you, I was like, that's great, because I don't know if there'd be many coaches out there that's like, I would want my clients or my athletes to fail spectacularly. And you know, I'm obviously doing Ginger Runner Live now for so many years, and doing Ginger Runner and having this channel that's like, hey, look, I've done Squamish 50/50 and I've done Cascade Crest, and it's self-imposed pressure to always have a win and to always look like everything is fine, or, you know, that sort of thing. But there's a part of me that was scared of failure, specifically at Headlands. I was like, if I don't complete it, that's really embarrassing. I'm going to be really, really embarrassed. And how do you acknowledge that? Or how do you approach something with removing that as the factor?
I mean, that's everything. Like, well, first, you know, maybe I say every athlete should fail just so I have a reason that I can fail as a coach and be okay with that. So it's like, how deep does the failure rabbit hole go?
Sure.
But no, like, I think one of the hardest parts of as particularly you guys deal with it, but then honestly, all of us. So I heard, God, I can't remember where I heard it, but essentially, oh yeah, Bo Burnham, a comedian, said that all
YouTuber
of us
too,
are
yeah.
What's that?
He's a YouTuber, or a former YouTuber.
Yeah.
Now he's full comedian. Yep.
Exactly. If you haven't watched his most recent Netflix special when he retired from comedy, it's worth a watch. It's different, but it's definitely worth it. But what he said is that we're all on a scale from one Instagram like to Kim Kardashian, you know? And so Ginger Runner Live and Mile Long Legs and all this stuff, this gives you this platform where you're somewhere towards the right of that scale. You know, you're going towards Kim K.
As I was just below her, like yeah. We're almost at that level.
I was saying, Ethan, we need one of those Ethan breaks the internet photos with like hydration.
I've got 20, and you don't want to see them.
Oh, perfect. But we're all on that spectrum to some extent. Like, you know, there's some people that are just thinking about their local community that they run with, and, you know, that might be over here, but we're all thinking about like how we fit into the world around us. And so when we do these things that are public, that people do know about by the nature of it being an event, we're putting ourselves out there for this cauldron of judgment, you know? And it's not just in our heads. It happens, right? Like, I'm sure you guys both get messages. You know, Ethan was telling me that people would apologize, say like, I'm so sorry about what happened, or whatever, which is implied that like you're supposed to feel bad about it or whatever.
Right.
And that goes for everyone. Like, you know, I see pro athletes go through it really badly, but we all have it. no matter what our things are. So with that in mind, like the idea is to make that failure the part of the story that we're all looking forward to and we're looking up to just as much. So, what I love about what you guys have done over the last couple of weeks is you're telling that story. You're not telling that story of like, oh, this failure will lead to my ultimate success or whatever, which is a valid story. You're telling the story as this was an end in and of itself. This failure is the delightful morsel that I want to share with you. Because that's like what we all deal with, like running, obviously, work. Like that's pretty much the narrative of work for most people. Relationships. I mean, gosh, think about what everyone listening, like what it took for you to get where you are within relationships, or if you've had bad relationships, like think about how much that involved putting yourself out there emotionally, and so it has all these metaphors for things. And I'm gonna finish that with like just an example of one person that I think might be relevant to this. So I was just this past weekend up in Squaw Village, so same place Western State starts, where they're holding the Spartan Race World Championships. And so Spartan Race World Championships, believe it or not, if you've never been exposed to it, there's over $100,000 of prize money in this race. The winners get $20,000, and it's a huge deal for the people that do it. So I'm up there to cheer on Nicole Miracle, one of our athletes, and she's at the top of Squaw Valley in a snowstorm. And it's 30 degrees, blowing snow, and she comes up to this obstacle that essentially involves her being like a super monkey, like a monkey that's like, I can't even explain it. She's like, it's an epic. There's videos online. And she doesn't pause. She gets through it, and she goes on, and she wins by 14 minutes, and it's the breakthrough of her athletic life. And I think from the outside, it's easy to think that, okay, this person, this is just meant to be. She's on social media. She looks like a total boss in everything she does. She gets to this obstacle. It's second nature because she's a pro athlete. She gets through it. What did Nicole actually go through that week? I mean, she told the story a little bit, but like she was worried, and then she gets that obstacle. Like, do you think, she's totally thinking about failure. Failure is so obvious, and it's being watched by 50,000 people on the live stream. Right. And all those things, like she had to confront that head on, and that led to her victory. But there were so many other like stories before that of failures, that like actual failures, like falling off obstacles or relationship issues or whatever, that took her to get to that point. And she's going to have so many more. So yeah, I guess the point is like we're here for the stories, and the stories without this nuance, this rich texture, so boring. It's like a flat elevation profile. Not to hate on anyone that does totally. It's like what we want some valleys. We want some really low points, and then some really high points, and then some low points. Because like every success you have is also a prelude to your failure, just as every failure is a prelude to your success. Right. So yeah, that's a long rambling answer to say it's all tasty little morsels. And if we take some of the stigma off, like just gives you this power to believe in yourself and love yourself, because all of us are dealing with different insecurities. And now you take a shot for the reference to.
Yeah. I think there's already 17 shots at this point. No.
Oh, yeah, I know.
I want to dig more into that. Before we get into that, we have live questions, but also, I'm sorry, you were going to say something too.
Oh, I was just going to kind of add on that, like the putting yourself out there and failing publicly. I DNF Cascade Crest a couple years ago, and that I've talked to Ethan about this a number of times this year. That DNF felt like the end of the world. Like I had to pull myself off of social media. I couldn't like cope, and I felt like super devastated. It felt like at the end of the world. I felt super embarrassed. I was getting all these messages from people saying like, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that. So all that to say that like my recent DNF at WHAM felt completely different than that Cascade DNF. So even though you might have like a devastating feeling of a DNF, it doesn't mean that every time that type of thing might happen that it'll feel the same.
Yeah, and like, what did you do at the race this year? Like you went for it from the gun. Like, you know what I mean? You were going so fast before the stomach turn and stuff. And like, gosh, what you learned from Cascade Crest was they gave you the courage to just freaking go. Like to give your body the space and grace to just like run fast, like run what, as comes natural to you. And who cares whether you go the whole distance? What does that matter? I mean, in our heads it does for sure. And it's great to add meaning and purpose to our lives. But this is just monkeys playing poker. This is all randomness and instilled onto chaos. We're trying to make order out of this chaotic world, which is awesome, but it really doesn't matter. What matters, if anything does, is like the relationships, the connection, all these things, which failure actually brings us all closer. So, I think it's like the coolest thing that like actually is I don't want a superhero story. I want a story of someone that like gets through these demons. So yeah, I mean, how are you feeling about it now, Kim? Like looking back, does this change how you feel about Cascade Crest at all? Or is that like, yeah, is there anything there?
I mean, within like regards to what happened at Wham, I still feel super proud about it. I was really happy. I definitely, since Wham, I've had a couple mornings where I've woke up and kind of been like, oh, I should have just pressed on, but it's not that heavy feeling. And I don't know, like Cascade Crest, I feel like Cascade Crest is kind of its own thing over in this box still for me. And I'm not sure why. I think at that time, I've talked about this a number of times too, but at that time I felt like everybody I know is going out and like nailing their hundreds. Everyone is out there running. They're finishing. They're just signing up and doing this and that. And I felt like I was the only one that wasn't, I think. So I don't know. I still have weird feelings about Cascade.
Well, which totally makes sense too. I mean, so much of this is like what we are talking about here essentially is trauma, like emotional trauma. And, that isn't unique to like things that it's not just a war zone, like everyone goes through these different emotional ups and downs that relate to things. And it's okay to also think that your DNF or your relationship failing or whatever is the end of the world. Like that, what I ask athletes to do too is like, not to fully turn away from that feeling. Like we want to acknowledge and get to a point where we're okay with it. But when it happens and you feel those things, like instead of saying, okay, this is the wrong feeling to have, David says I should believe in myself and I don't. What I want them to be like is like, no. Those thoughts are normal and I embrace those thoughts. So like, we all have a tendency when there's something we don't like about ourselves or some situation to like push that thought away, be like, get out of here. And instead, like what's so much more powerful is to be like, okay, I'm going to hug that thought. I'm just going to like bring it in with like a bear hug because that is a part of like what makes me who I am. And so anxiety being the ultimate example of this, like smart people suffer from anxiety, as does most of humanity, but especially really smart people. So like by saying you don't want to have anxiety, you're also saying like, I don't really want to be who I am. I want to change something fundamental about myself. So it's like, yeah, you can work through it, but that is so important. Like that element of you is so important. And the same thing goes for DNFs. Like, yeah, if you care about it, that's freaking awesome. Like so many people go through their lives and don't care about anything. Right. So yeah, you put yourself out there, you go for it, you care. It matters, even though it doesn't. It's like this place where you can just go for it. So like there's a DNF, which is one type of failure. There's DNS, like, for other reasons. But then I think with the only real failure, like metaphorically, is I wrote it down here, is the DNGOTC, the did not get off the couch. And I don't mean that like actually staying on the couch, like, I mean it in terms of never giving yourself the shot in life, generally. Not, one of my favorite authors is named Shea Serrano. He writes about basketball and other things. And his thing is like, shoot your shot. You just got to shoot your shot. Like you miss all the time. That's just the nature of shooting shots. So Kim, you shot your shot and so did Ethan. And I love that.
That's funny that you actually bring that specific point up because the only reason I even got to the start line was I kept telling myself like the whole week leading up to Headlands, it was a big debate in my head of like, well, what's the point of running 100 miles? when I signed up, I was pumped on it. I was excited to get back to that distance. And the closer I got to the event, it was more, why do people even do this? Like, what's the point of running 100 miles? I could easily go run 50 miles and get that same sort of joy. You know, you push yourself to a certain limit and you push through it and you get the finish line and you get to go have dinner with the 50 miler. Whereas 100 miles, you might get breakfast or lunch the next day if you're lucky. But I kept telling myself, like, if you end up not running Headlands, you're going to be disappointed that you didn't even start. You know, it wasn't because of injury that I wasn't showing up to that start line, which is a legitimate excuse if you're injured or something's going on, personal or whatever. I had no fallback. Like, there wasn't anything for me to go, that's why I didn't start. And I feel good about that decision. And it became that sort of internal voice saying, just start, take your shot. There was the cliche line of, you only regret the shots you don't take. You know, that sort of cliche line was the one that was going through my head. And I hate that sort of stuff of just a kitty hanging from a branch and it's hang in there, you know, that sort of cliche poster stuff from elementary school. But that phrase kept going through my mind and I was like, wow, it's resonating. I don't know what to think about that thought resonating with me. But I totally agree.
I'm the kitty hanging from a branch coach. Like, if that kitty got studied exercise physiology, that would be me.
Hang in there. Mew.
I totally love that. Like, I mean, I love it so much because, you know, we're talking about running, but we're only talking about running because that's what like brings our community together.
Right.
Like, everything we do applies in the same exact way, you know? And like, it's so easy to choose the option that is the certain one, you know? Whatever the societal conveyor belt is for you, like, given your background, where you grew up, who you are. It's so easy to just stay on that conveyor belt, get through your life as much as you can, and then die or whatever. And, you know, that's valid if you want to. But like, what's so much more cool are the people that go out and just do whatever. Like, you know, start a YouTube channel, like, you know, put themselves out there on social media, do all these different things not because it matters, but because it doesn't. Like, that's the idea, is like, you're liberated from the shackles of like thinking that there is a path that you have to follow. So yeah, like with you getting to the start line of the 100, like, I gave you a lot of outs not to do that. You know, I was in saying things to you, and same with Kim in the 110K, saying like, you're choosing the explicitly difficult thing to do, or are we doing that for a reason? And both of you are like, yeah, that's why I'm here. And that's the point. Like, you're not choosing the path of least resistance. You're doing something epic. You're going for it. Not epic in so far as like 100 miles, but epic in is like not comfortable. And so, yeah, I mean, I just say to everyone listening, like, choose discomfort sometimes. You know, it goes with everything. Like, I have too many failure stories to count, but I have some other stories I'll share later. But like, basically the idea is, you know, if you're worried about these things at all, like if it goes into your calculus at all, you'll always fail. Like, you'll always actually fail in terms of how you actually feel about who you are and what you're capable of. The only way to like get over that point is to put yourself out there. It's to jump. It's to make that leap, to shoot your shot. That's why I say to everyone on this call, like, if you take away one thing, like, shoot your shot. Tomorrow at work, shoot your shot. Relationship, whatever. Do it. You know, Steph Curry misses over half his shots. It's okay. Just shoot it.
I love that. We have lots of live questions. I want to make sure we get to some of these. I'm seeing the chat room electrify. So, Kim, what do we have?
A question from SK in the chat room. They asked, when you're having a bad race, how do you not internalize it when it's happening? Example, this race is terrible. My training was terrible. I'm terrible at everything.
Like this, I think this question's great because it brings up the side, or the like kind of flip side of things, is how do you not let success become a failure? So if you're having a race and you have a low spot, how do you continue to push through to not let it become a DNF? You know that you still have the strength and these internal voices. Like, how do you balance that?
So I don't like athletes to dissociate ever during races. There's a tendency to be like, oh, I want to escape these thoughts and not feel them, whether it's music or, being like, oh, well, if I just imagine that I'm not here, I'll get 5 miles further or whatever. Instead, I want athletes to fully engage with what they're feeling and thinking, and then try to be mindful about it in the moment. All of these spiritual traditions kind of stumble on the same truth, which is, that if you can give and share and receive love, you're more spiritually available, blah, blah, blah. So mindfulness is like one path that has a lot of different names. Mm-hmm. So the idea is like those negative thoughts come in, you have to acknowledge them. If you don't, they will just fester and get worse. And so you acknowledge them and then just kind of let them go away, like embrace the idea that you had them, and then think about like why you're here, what you're doing, and all those things. So I think a lot of those decisions are made before the race starts. You have to know what you're getting into, like what the point is. And so, Ethan and Kim know like a pre-race email that I send. And the pre-race email honestly ended up being what became The Happy Runner, the book that my wife and I published. It's like, we're stardust with delusions of grandeur. We're out there to make memories and none of this really matters. And within the face of that, what we want to do is try to embody this like loving positivity, and not just like, because it's healthy mentally, but because that's what leads to the best performance. So you have that negative thought, you acknowledge it, you feel it, you embrace it, and then you try to get back to a place where you're able to laugh at what you're experiencing and going through. And sometimes that there's no amount of turning it around you can do. I mean, I did the Trail World Championships a few years ago. So a big race in the year, and I was in like 4th place at mile 15 of a 50K. Feeling solid, but then things start to go south, and I'm like, oh, I can get through this. I'm fit, and then all of a sudden I start cramping, and I never really had cramps before, but this turned into like one of those full body cramps from like here all the way down to my feet. So I was on the side of the trail, like breakdancing essentially, as I got passed by. By the end of the race, I think I was close to last place, like 600th or something, or however.
Wow.
And yeah. To me, it's like, that's the funniest story ever. So like no amount of positivity would get me through that. But by the end, I was really laughing in the moment. And to me, that's the win I take away from that. So that's an amazing question though. I think the big moral of that story is think a lot about this before you get to a start line, because once you get there, a lot of that work has to have already been done.
Let's get to one more live question.
Yeah, a question from Ron in the chat room. Ron says, would you suggest taking a time out after a DNF at a goal race before jumping back into another race?
It depends on why you're doing it. That's a great question. I would say, I want, like, a lot of the times I'm like, that's great training. We didn't destroy our body so much. Let's get into something else ASAP. If the DNF brought some feelings of self-loathing, like, I don't want any decision to come from a place of not liking yourself, because there's no solution. Like, you're never going to get to a finish line ever and be like, oh, now I feel good about who I am. So like if you DNF and it's like, okay, well, I'm fit, or I have some other goal I want to do, I still want to do this, my body's in a good place, go for it. If you're like, I DNF'd, I'm worthless until I get to another finish line, don't do that, because that's just going to lead to a place where you actually spiral about like yourself and your place in the world. And that goes with anything. Like maybe an analogy for that is weight loss. Like I never want to, like, sometimes athletes need to lose weight. Like I'm the ultimate, like, eat all the food, burgers, blah, blah, blah. But sometimes like an athlete has diabetes or something, or heart issues, and their doctor tells them they need to lose weight. But even then, like, I never want that to come from a place of being like, I don't like who I am. I don't like my body. Because if you're going to lose weight and not like who you are, or not like your body still, instead, like, you need to work on that. Like, okay, I like this about myself. So Ethan and Kim, for example, totally comfortable with what they went through. I mean, working through it, having the moments with the DNFs. And at a place where like they can laugh at it, make jokes about it on a podcast in front of tons of people. Yeah, they could hop in a race right away. Even though their bodies are tired, like, I'd be totally fine with that, because that's coming from a place that they're only going to get, stronger. But Kim, after Cascade Crest last time, what she was describing, that probably wouldn't be super healthy.
Yeah, we have lots of friends. We've had guests on this show. We've talked about that a lot. Where if they fail at a big race, something that they've trained for a long time for, it's not just let's train for a couple weeks and do this thing on a whim, but like this is my goal race, my A race of the year, and they fail at it, and you see them or DNF or they don't start or that sort of thing, but then they jump right into another big, almost A race within an immediate, really close time frame. You see it often sort of snowball and kind of become the passion isn't there, or the reason for them doing it is different. It's more like I'm only going to be okay if I finish this next race, as opposed to I really just want to do it, for fun or for the experience or that sort of thing. Yeah, we see it all the time. We have lots of close friends and stuff that have gone through that same process.
And I mean, immediately after Cascade Crest, I actually had people coming up saying, well, where are you going to put your fitness? Where are you going to put your fitness? Oh,
Right.
You should sign up for blank race, still has spots in the 100. You should go do that. You should put your fitness somewhere. And I kept thinking, you have those thoughts of, yeah, maybe I should put my fitness somewhere. But then it's also like, why? Like if I don't have my heart set on going to do this thing, what is that? What is the reason behind it?
Yeah.
So, and
I mean, think of like, again, all these things have analogies for life. Like, think about a relationship that you've had in the past, like that ended. It's like if you're at a place where you're like, oh my God, I need to get someone on my arm right away, or I am useless, I am a failure. I'm like, that other relationship is not going to be positive, almost certainly. If instead you're like ready for it, like you're like this, I like who I am, I'm ready to go, I'm fulfilled. Like then, that can be a day, it could be a year, whatever. Like then you're ready to go. So I'm not sure what ready to go means in that context, but I'll let your brain try.
Ready to go. That question from Matt there in the chat room. Yeah, I think that's a great question.
Yeah, a question from Matthew in the chat room. Matthew says, David, how do you think we as a community can fail better together? How can we foster an environment where failure is seen as productive and something to be shared?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question here, and I love it so much. And I think that's the idea. It's love. Like, what I've really been trying to do in my own life, for example, is be more comfortable with that word, and like telling people that they are loved. Like everyone understands it's not in a romantic sense. Like we can say that nowadays, and like so it happens. Like tell people they are like you. Freaking love that you did this. Like, I'm so proud of you for doing this. Or whatever. Like, not ever say you're sorry or I wish it turned out better or anything like that. It's okay to acknowledge someone's trauma, if that's the case, to be there for them, but never lose sight of the fact that like they are perfect the way they are to you. And that gets to a broader point of our power as it relates to other people. So I think, God, I'm just like the king of tangents tonight. I'm so sorry. But
Okay.
I'm just going to follow this tangent for a sec. So Megan and I were talking about this as we drove home from Spartan Race yesterday. So many, like all of us analogize our own experiences to the experiences of others. Like it's the only way that we can truly understand the world. But the reality is that no one is the same as us. Like we have a purely unique experiences and worldview. So give yourself love about your own thoughts. But where this relates to the question that Matt had is give other people love about their own thoughts, about their thoughts. So like the idea being that when someone goes through something, even if someone's being mean to you or whatever, they're just projecting how they feel about themselves. Or when people have an eating disorder, it's not that they want to be skinny necessarily or something that you might think if you had an eating disorder. It's that they have these deep-seated psychological things that you can't begin to understand unless you're also going through something similar. And so as it relates to failing or whatever, our only power, and it's not just failing, it's like the eating disorder thing I talked about, or anxiety. If you don't experience anxiety, you don't understand anxiety, which or depression or whatever. I don't experience depression. So all I can say in these instances is like, you're loved and you are perfect the way you are. Even the things that you don't love about yourself are loved. And so that's, I think, what we can all do for each other. And I think it's something we should all try to do for everyone in our lives. And, like, think about a dog, for example. I mean, I know it's cliche, but the reason people love golden retrievers is that they can do this for you. Like they love you in your place where you are. And so do that for people, wag your tail, tell them they're great, cry with them if that's required, but also laugh with them and laugh at the tears and all that other stuff. So spread the love because, why else are we here?
I love that. I love that because we talk about this community, the viewers of this show, week after week after week, and we have such an amazing support system. But I think it's important to just acknowledge how great the community is for one another as well, simply by being there and spreading love. Like what we see it tonight with some comments in the chat room and that sort of thing. But people are asking questions and people are supporting their questions and answers, and it's this really wonderful sort of cohesive love, and it is a powerful thing that I don't think we acknowledge enough on the show, is just how much that love to other people can help other people.
I love the Ginger Runner Live community for just that reason. And I'm not is Andrea, I'm not sure if she's watching, if she's here, but whether or not she's here, I know she's really engaged with GRL. So I do want to give her a shout out because she's been through a lot. And she got an hour PR at the Overlook 50K today from, her previous PR was at Skyline to Sea, which nice and downhill. I'm doing it this week because I like the downhill. And, so like but the most meaningful thing was not the race or the PR or whatever. She's failed a lot. She's succeeded a lot. It was an email that she sent to me today that was just like full of brimming with so much love. And, even after good races, there's chances to judge yourself. And, there was like self-growth stuff in there and things like that. But, it's just like she was running with this feeling, and if you can do that, if you can live like that as much as you can, given the constraints of your brain chemistry, then, you can start to see the lines in the matrix, the numbers scroll by, a little bit, and once you do that, then gosh, DNFing becomes kind of fun, at least a funny story.
Andrea is here in the chat room.
She is also in the chat room.
Yes.
Yeah. An hour PR. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. So big shout out to Andrea. One thing I kind of want to touch on, because I do see some dialogue kind of regarding this in the chat room, and this is a bit of a shift in the conversation, but I have always been afraid of the DNF. We've had guests on this show who have never DNF'd before. They wear it like a badge, and they're really proud of it, that I've never failed. I've never left a race before the finish line. So this being really my first real DNF, I got one a couple years ago from an injury while I was I shouldn't have raced to begin with. So I never really considered that a DNF because I stopped at like mile 6. I was like, I shouldn't have started. That should have been a DNS. But this was like my first DNF. And I loved it. Like kind of what we've been talking about the last few weeks on this show is that this was the first time I left a race, put everything out there that I possibly could, but also am like celebrating myself for the accomplishment of getting to the start line, getting, 5 miles past where I thought I would ever get to, then beyond that, just because there were so many other facets to this race beyond the finish 100 miles. So I look at it as this incredible thing to celebrate. So what would you tell people who are looking at their race resume or their future race resume and fearing a DNF? What would you say to them?
Oh, I mean, you nailed the word there. Celebrate. Like this is a celebration, not just racing, but like almost every day, like everything we can do is trying to be a celebration for the like sheer act of existence itself. So, no, someone has never DNF'd. Awesome. That's great. But like, you probably also like, if you go out super duper hard, Jim Walmsley DNF'd because he went out super hard. He could have finished every single race he's ever done by a ton. I'm not saying there's a value judgment there, but like Jim Walmsley shot his shot. That's for sure. And I've DNF'd tons of times. And like, I think the idea is that whether you finish or whether you don't, it's just a chance to celebrate. Because like there is no light at the end of the tunnel, just more tunnel, especially as it comes to racing. Like you can win every race you ever do. You can finish every race you ever do. That won't actually lead to a place of self-satisfaction at like a deep level. It might contribute to a purpose and drive that brings you meaning in everyday life, but it won't actually get to that point. So, I think ultra running is particularly fascinating because a lot of the times what drives people in this sport might be mental health struggles, like it coincides for a reason. Often, not all the time, just in some instances. And, if someone is doing something because they don't like themselves, and like, who cares whether they win or DNF or whatever? Like, that's not the goal, So, like, I would love if post-race interviews said, like, the first question was, "Hey, are you happy? Like, are you like generally not happy about the race, but like, are you happy?" And so, with that in mind, celebrate. Like, the race is the ultimate celebration. That's what I try to get every athlete to embody, and everyone listening to this, like, whatever your race is, whether it's a running race or a work presentation or anything like that. Like if you have public speaking fears, which is like a similar concept, like a similar part of the brain. This is the celebration. All the tests are in the past. Like, whatever point you're at now, this is the celebration. This is the moment where you're going to be popping the champagne bottles no matter what. There is no universal scoreboard up there where you have one and someone else has zero. Like, you're the one making the scoreboard, and you're on everyone else's team. Like, we're all on the same team. So, yeah, let's give all of ourselves like 2,000 points and pop some champagne bottles.
And here's our champagne.
Yeah.
All over the electronics.
We've been talking about in the last couple of years, just you and I have even said we want to do more of this, not for the results. So like we want to stop using results to define us and letting the experiences define us and our memories and our adventures and our triumphs and our failures, that sort of thing, rather than the results. And it's been like, I'll be honest, everything that we're talking about in today's show is really hard. It's not as easy to go, I didn't finish a race. I should feel really good about that. It's difficult to sort of get into that mindset, and it's a constant practice, I think. And also dealing with results and moving on from the results define me to the experiences define me was really difficult. And we're still working on that. Like, it's still kind of hard to go, well, I had a great race and I feel really confident and I'm like really happy that I got to where I got to in that race. But shit, there's still a DNF now on my ultra signups page. It's still hard to not let that seep its way to the top of my thought pile.
Yeah. And I'm spending a lot of time in the spiritual plane, but let's take it down to the physiology plane, like in the just nuts and bolts of it plane. And I'll say that as a coach, the number one most important thing is how athletes deal with failure, setbacks, whatever. Before, as the intro was going on, I went to the page, our website, and just looked at the pro athletes that we have listed. Just a marketing thing. I know it's super hypocritical to list pro athletes on a website that say results don't matter. And I was just like curious. I was like, okay, let's go through. So Megan Roach, currently coming back from hamstring rupture, hasn't raced in over a year. David Roche, look at my face. Matt Daniels, DNF Bandera this year before his breakthrough. Claire Gallagher, DNF Western States 2 years ago before winning Western States this year. Jason Schlarb, before he joined SWAP, had a series of DNFs all in a row that led to him then having his breakthroughs. Amelia Boone, very open about some of her struggles that she's been through. Now she raced for the first time in a year this weekend, finished second against a stacked field. And the list goes on. I could just go down the full list and name every single person like that. And I don't think that they're successful in spite of those things that they went through. All of them are successful because they have learned to deal with those things that they go through, because those things are ubiquitous in a life, not just an athletic life, a life. And if those failures derail, or the setbacks or whatever you want to call it, derail how you feel about yourself, then you're going to totally undermine your progress. So even if you're able to keep training through it and stay healthy and stay what, one, you're going to have stress, stress hormones being released and a neurophysical context that doesn't let your body adapt subsequently, doesn't let you heal, doesn't let you be healthy, ages you rapidly, makes you stupider. I mean, it's like it goes down the list. So, I always talk about belief and all these other things, but the basic principle is that, if we're thinking long term, and long term being anything over a month or two, you're opting in by pursuing anything. You're opting in to failing at that thing. If you're doing a startup, your startup is going to have 55 failures along the way, at least. If you're in a relationship, you're going to have to fight through so many failures. If you're a runner, like your failures are slightly more clear and obvious because there is like a time, there is a DNF, there is this thing that we face, but it's the same as every other setback in life. And so, yeah, like you face that moment, and then that's the chance to be like, okay, now is when I can prove myself as an athlete. Like now is when I show what I'm made of. I shot my shot, I missed, and I'm going to shoot my next shot because that next shot might go in. And if that doesn't go in, the next one might go in, and then the next one. And when that starts going in, like you have to miss a lot of shots and then you get there. And so, keep shooting your shot, celebrate whether you make it or miss it, and have fun. I mean, as much as possible. And yeah, I like maybe one more failure story just because I think it's so important. So Meg McKenzie, this year, Meg McKenzie's an athlete from South Africa. In South Africa, it's a smaller running community, though very passionate. And she is like famous as you can get, much more famous than a lot of, you would assume that a US runner would be. And so they have the Golden Trail Series, the series of races in Europe and some in the US. And the top 10 get a huge cash prize, like 10,000 euro or something like that. Yeah. But more than that, it's a symbol of status. And, it's the place where you make your medal as a mountain runner and sky runner. So she was going to go for it. She was going to shoot her shot. She gets to Zagama, the first race on that series, and has nothing, absolutely nothing. Gets to mile 6, I believe, and drops out, something like that. Mm. So how do you respond to that? I mean, when I was watching the live stream, I was like, oh gosh, this is the moment. This is like this is the crux. This is the crucible for her. And Addie barked. Excitement. The story's clearly building, and I'm dark, so it's perfect.
Yeah, your light is slowly fading, so you have until you go to complete darkness. There we go. Set the mood for the story too.
It's a scary story. So DNFs, we talk on the phone the next time, and she's in public, in this public sphere. She has all these things, and you know what she says to me? She's like, David, we're talking. She knows a little bit about like my schedule and things. She's like, you should go to that race in Pennsylvania. You need to shoot your shot. So the way that she dealt with her issue was like, yeah, it phased her. It's hard. But she immediately was talking to me about how I need to go do this thing because she's going to do it too. And so, yeah, I went to that race in Pennsylvania. And then Meg came back and absolutely crushed 4 races in a row to finish near the top of those standings. So, yeah, I mean, and the thing that Meg knows and that we talked about a lot is that's a cool story, but it doesn't end there. Like this ultimate success is going to lead to ultimate failure. And that's the fun part. That's the cool part. That's the journey. So yeah, like embrace that. Like she's loved, we're loved, you're loved. And Addie's loved most of all.
There's a comment in the chat room that I just want to read because I think it's probably the most relevant to this very moment. I think this has been the pep talk that we all just seemed to need. And that's from Vivian. And I couldn't agree more. It's relevant for Kim and I because it happened just now, last 2 weeks. We've been dealing with this exact thing of trying to overcome what we're considering not a failure, but a turning point, perhaps. Mm-hmm. We took our shots. Our shots bounced off the rim. Doesn't mean that our next shots might not go in and swish.
Slam dunk
it. They might also bounce off the rim. Who knows? But we took our shot, and we're really, really proud of that. But maybe someone watching tonight has been on the fence or doubting their ability to take their own shot. And it doesn't have to be about running. I think David mentioned earlier in the show, this could be something that we can translate to any facet of our life, whether it's work, relationships, family, food, racing, whatever. There's something to be said in this. And this show couldn't have happened at a better time. David, we're really, really appreciative of you taking the time to sort of pep talk us. We knew, I think we both anticipated, we knew what David was going to say to us to kind of help us grind out. But I think it's also something that the world needs to hear.
Well, both of you have heard me talk to I tried to not make it all about your specific situations, but I am so proud of you guys. I can't, to the point that you can have goosebumps right now, and I'm almost crying a little bit, even though I'm not that emotional, even though
it's the candle.
It's
probably scented.
Actually, it is. It is.
Emotion.
Actually, sounds delicious. So I'm so proud of you both. This is what it's about. Not even the shooting your shot element, but this moment when you oh, hey guys, high fives. Missed that shot. That was fun. And keep working and keep moving on and find the joy in that moment. So yeah, this applies to you guys, but it also applies to everyone listening. As hard as it is to believe sometimes, the world will hand you so much evidence that you shouldn't believe. The essence of being an athlete, of being a person that sees the randomness of the universe, is believing anyway. Getting to this point where no matter what you're going through, it might be a DNF, it might be a relationship failure, it might be an eating disorder, it might be depression, it might be the worst things imaginable. You are perfect the way you are, because there is no definition to that word. You can define it. You can form that narrative, and we can form that narrative together. So not just you are perfect, but the people around you are, even as they're different. You can be that love. So yeah, try to do that. Helps if you have a, oats and honey candle maybe, but. And now I announce my sponsorship with
Yankee Candles. Damn it!
Yeah, I hate the Yankees.
Yankee, not Yankees candles. That would smell like fail.
That's the only true failure is the New York Yankees.
Yeah, it just smells like Jeter sweat or something.
Yeah.
I can't, again, thank you enough, David, for coming on the show. It's just awesome to be able to talk to you in a forum like this and have you be just so wonderfully supportive of not only Kim and I in our dreams and our goals. You've been hugely helpful to our lives, and you're, again, having you on the show is a great way to show the world just how great you are as a human. So we appreciate all that you do for us and for our community and for your own community. The SWAP team is full of so many inspiring stories. It's fantastic. We got to hear a little bit of those tonight, so we appreciate that, David. Can you let people know where they can find you, where they can get your candles, where they can see pictures of Addie Dog? Where can people find you?
I'm all over. Addie does stuff. Instagram. It's slowly becoming a little bit less all Addie. Addie, come here. Addie, come. She's waiting for Megan at the door.
Oh.
So, she's submitting. She's confused. Sorry.
For those who maybe aren't in the know, you're about to meet Addie Dog.
Oh.
She doesn't love
like,
being
like
You'll be okay with it. Sorry she's loved too. So Addie does stuff on Instagram, Mountain Roach on Twitter, Happy Runner book if you want to read more of this. And yeah, then otherwise just Google pictures of puppies, and maybe in the glint of their eyes, you will see some of this pep talk.
That's probably the best self-plug ever. Don't go to my website. Just go search dog images, and if you see a glimmer in their eye, that's me. That's the hope and dreams. Our guest tonight, David Roche, Coach Roach. You can find him at all the places he just listed. I highly encourage you to go check him out. Thank you, David, very much for joining us.
We love you guys.
Yay. David is going to be joining us for a few minutes on our after show. Our after show is basically what happens directly after our main show with our guest, but we rapid fire through questions that didn't get asked during the main show. Kim has pulled so many aside, and additional questions for our Patreon crew. If you'd like to join us, all you got to do is go to patreon.com/thegingerrunner. It's right there at the bottom of the screen. For as little as $1 a month, which is a fraction of a cup of coffee, you actually support everything that we do here. You get some cool perks on the back end, including our after show access. So the link is up there now. You can go join Patreon or whatever. You don't have to, but our after show will begin right after this show. But before we end our show, we have a segment that we like to call our crew member of the week, our GR crew member of the week. Yeah, hit one of those.
I don't know which ones.
One of those
I don't know what
sounds.
noise.
We still haven't labeled our sound, so you're just getting general sounds. I'm assuming it's laughter and trombone. I don't know. But we like to recognize members of our viewing audience and our crew out there watching right now, or just watching our videos in general. We like to recognize members who have done something awesome in the last week or failed spectacularly. But we do like to recognize member of our crew. So, Kim, who is our GR crew member of the week?
GR crew member of the week this week is Robin Clayton. Congrats, Robin, who ran her first 50K. She ran run off the grid 50K up in Ontario, Canada. And she said she stumbled it in for third place female. So congrats, Robin.
Damn. That's fantastic. Also getting the round of applause from David in the dark hole that he is now currently sitting in. But that's amazing. Robin, congratulations on placing not only third, but finish. Oh, my God. David now has 2 candles. What's the flavor of the other one?
Sea salt vanilla, like the salty energy that Robin ran with this weekend. And
so good. So good. We're going to have more with David and his candles in the after show. But Robin, congratulations. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into Ginger Runner Live tonight. We can't thank you enough. We'll see you next week for more Ginger Runner Live. But also, happy October, because apparently it's October starting tomorrow. Is that right? Tomorrow?
I think so.
Cheese. What is it? Fall?
Cheese?
Cheese. I love cheese. Thank you, everyone, so much. Get out there, train hard, race harder, and party the hardest. Am I forgetting anything?
I don't think so.
Cool. We'll see you guys next week.
Goodbye. Bye.
Ginger Runner.